my loves. Welcome back to Desire Dialogues, the podcast that holds all parts of your pleasure with curiosity, clarity, and just the right amount of sass. I'm your host, Lauren Goyette, sex, love, and relationship coach. And today we're going to talk about something that comes up all the time in my work, but so many people are really too afraid to kind of say that out loud. You ready? Let's do it. First off, welcome to my new listeners. So happy you're here, friend. Let's get into it. So, why do I get turned on by something I'd never want to do in real life? Or is there something wrong with me for fantasizing about that? Spoiler alert, no, there's nothing wrong with you. Today in this episode, we're going to explore the difference between fantasy and action, why taboo turn-ons are so common, and how you can explore your mind's kinks without shame or fear. So, my friend, your brain is your largest sex organ. Here's a truth that most sex ed kind of forgot to teach us. Fantasy is not a contract. It's an invitation to curiosity, to sensation, to safe exploration. So, the way that the brain works, all right, like we fantasize in ways to, first off, stimulate our imagination. Second off, it's a way to safely flirt with the risky and, or the taboo. It's also another way to process power, shame, or control. And it's also another thing our brain does to make us feel wanted, wild, or totally free. And most importantly, what's turning us on in our heads doesn't mean that we always necessarily want it to happen. Like, for example, right, you might fantasize about being taken or overpowered, but need full enthusiastic consent in real life, right? Or you might get off to that teacher-student scenes, but never, want anything that unethical in real life, especially when you find out your teacher isn't as hot as you thought they were because it's a virtual course. I'm just kidding. I'm not. All right. Or, for example, you might enjoy group sex and fantasy, but totally monogamous at heart, right? None of that makes you broken. It makes you brilliantly human, and you are not alone. So, taboo equals turn on. Here's why. The psychology behind the taboo fantasies, right? We have the fact that rebellion is actually arousing, right? What we're told not to want often becomes what our mind plays with the most. Have you noticed that? And another thing too is taboo fantasies let us touch danger safely. It's a sandbox where you're in control, no one gets hurt, nothing actually happens, but the nervous system gets a taste of that edge. And then another one, there's that power plus transgression equals erotic heat. There's often deep meaning behind the scenes we build in our heads. And sometimes those meanings are more important than the actual plot itself. All right, but I can't tell anyone about this, right? Yeah, that's why that shame creeps in. A lot of my clients, will whisper to me, they're like, well, what if my partner knew I fantasize about this? Or if I enjoy CNC, consensual non-consent, does that mean I want to be hurt? Another one I hear is if I get off to something I wouldn't morally agree with, does that make me a bad person? Let me say this clearly. Fantasies are not facts. Erotic thought does not equal endorsement. You can hold integrity and imagination coexisting. There's a difference between play and real-world values. You're allowed to explore your psyche without guilt, right? Okay, but how to explore that safely? Let's get into it. Some ways to start safely playing with your fantasies is, first off, journal it out, right? Write it down in vivid fucking detail and notice what themes are underneath it. You could try audio erotica, maybe especially with those taboo themes like role play, monster romance, having sex with a merman. I just devoured a book. It was literally a 450-page book, and they had sex twice, right? But this merman has 2 sets of lungs, it has 2 hearts, and it also has 2 dicks. So, hey. Anyways, right? And then another taboo theme, CNC, that consensual, non-consensual. Try that erotica, the erotica on audio. Just see where your mind goes, right? Another safe way to play with fantasy is dirty talking or like role play scripts where you can create scenes where you stay in control while exploring the edges of your safety. You can share with a partner using phrases like, I don't want to act this out, but I really love thinking about it. This isn't something I'd ever do, but I trust you enough to share it with you. Would you be open to a role play that kind of flirts with this idea that I just talked about? See, I hope that we chatted about this and you're not feeling as overwhelmed or shameful about your fantasies, right? Like, that's the thing. If your fantasy folder looks like a little taboo, a little spicy, a little out of character, congratulations, you're fucking doing it right. Pleasure doesn't always have to be polished or PC. Sometimes it's really primal, and that's okay. And, if you want to explore your inner landscape even more, check out the Pleasure Collective membership. All the info is down in my link tree that's in the show notes. I have a fantasy reflection journal in one of my workshops in the trainings, and it really helps you unpack what turn-ons really mean for you and then how to play with them without shame. Always feel free to DM me on Instagram at Lauren Goyette if you're ready to say, here's a fantasy I was too afraid to admit. Until now, I'm always here for you. I read every email. I read every message, right? Because you deserve like this full spectrum of desire, and that includes fantasies, and that includes the taboo. And because that's totally normal, that's actually really healthy. Pleasure's your birthright, my friend. Like, you don't have to ask permission for pleasure. Just enjoy the fact that it's available for you. It's available to tap into. And it's available to talk about if you want to bring it into, real life. And a few different ways to do that. Like, phrases that we talked about. A lot of the times, the biggest blockers are like, okay, how do I say this? How do I say that I'm thinking about this? I hope that these scripts helped you. If you got a friend, you just maybe had this conversation like, oh, we were just talking about fantasies the other day. This is perfect. Share it with them. If you love chatting about stuff like this, rate the show. I thank you in advance. I thank you from the bottom of my clit for all of your support. Get ready for our next episode. It's going to be about erotic identity and figuring out if you are a sensualist, an anarchist, or a seeker. My friends, until next time. Sex Coach Lauren here for you today and always. I am your pleasure cheerleader. Stay well, my friends. Stay curious and let those fantasies play out in your mind. It's healthy. Very, very healthy.